Okay, so we're not able to predict how much disability you're going to have and how much problem you're going to have based on how much injury you've had. And so then what predicts it? What predicts how bad a person's going to do? Well, it turns out it's the mindset. It's the thoughts that you have. And so there's two thoughts that can ruin your life. One is catastrophic thinking, which is basically persistent negative thinking. In life, we don't know how to predict what life is going to be like. We can't predict what's going to happen, how I'm going to feel tomorrow, let alone how things are going to be in a year or 10 years from now. But there is a bad habit many people have, and sometimes I have it too, where we persist on negative thinking and also create the worst possible negative scenario, and we believe that that's what's going to happen. And those people, they don't recover. And it's not because they're psychologically crazy. The brain just goes into a defensive mechanism and it will produce all kinds of pain. The second one is what we call fear avoidance. So you're so afraid to move, therefore I'm not going to move. And so you know how doctors say, you go to a doctor and say, you know what, doc, I mean, my shoulder hurts. And then the doctor says, well, what do you have to do? He goes, well, if I raise it like this, then it hurts. And what does the doctor say? Then don't do it. Right? Well, it turns out that's bad advice. Because they stop not only doing this, on another day, they move back and it hurts. So see, okay, then maybe I won't move this. Another day, they twist their hand a little bit and then it hurts. So now the person can't twist their arm anymore. And so when you continue to do that, then your body just stops working. And so it's the psychological state of mind that determines what kind of quality of life you're going to have. If I take it one step further, it means that it doesn't matter what happens to you in your life, if you have the right psychological state, okay, then you can really be happy and you can overcome all kinds of problems. And in fact, you handle problems with the right kind of mental attitude and openness so that amazing creative solutions come available to you. And so the thoughts that we have on a daily basis make such a huge difference. And studies are showing over and over again that it's not what happens to you that's important, but it's how you respond with your thoughts that's important. So I can't control my wife being mean to me. I can't control that. I tell her to stop, okay? And many times she says, I'm not being mean to you. And then we get into a fight. So that whatever she's doing, whatever the kid's doing, is not the important part, but how I handle that situation and with what mental state and what thoughts that I handle those situations is what makes the difference. And so it's your internal state of mind. And this to me is our spirituality. For those of you that have strong, ongoing, day-to-day spiritual relationship with your God, and you've accepted, okay, the basic tenets, the faith that we have, that drives everything. And we have all kinds of power to be able to handle all kinds of adversities. When you're talking about state of mind, nobody's immune to negative thinking. Okay. So for example, I like, you know, the biggest challenge to our human brain is relationship. And among relationships, the most challenging relationship is obviously marriage. You know, I realized the problem with marriage. Problem with marriage is that every morning you wake up, that person is right next to you. Okay? okay? My wife, she won't go anywhere. All right, I'm not saying that I don't like it, but every morning I wake up, regardless of what's happening in this world, she's right there. This is not easy, okay? And all kinds of things happen every single day, as I shared the other night. On average, women experience 8, okay, emotionally challenging times per day, okay, with their spouse. 8 times they're getting pissed off. And then men have 7 times. And it's not because we're any better, it's because we don't have very good memories. So we probably had 10, but we only remember 7. Okay? That's how challenging it is. On average, you have to overcome 8 separate negative, emotional, challenging experience on a daily basis. Okay? If you don't figure it out, you don't have a marriage. Even if you don't divorce, you're living together, but you kind of figure out a way to live separately. There was a story of a married couple. This is back in 1960s. He got so angry that he literally chopped the house in half and moved half the house on the other corner of the lot. And they lived separately, married for 40 years. The kids told the researchers about it. And so they asked him, what was he so upset about? And he was upset because she had paid 10 cents extra for a gallon of milk or something. This is a story from Philip Yancey's book. He's one of the very good Christian writers. But relationship is that difficult. I'll tell you my experience. I was, my wife always complains about my driving. And I don't know why she complains, because then she should just drive herself. But as a man, I gotta drive. So when I drive, she complains that, when it's time to exit, I get at the last minute and I exit. And she goes, why don't you get on the exit lane well ahead of time so that she doesn't have to feel anxious? And she complained about it for like 5 years. And I keep telling her, okay, either you drive or, I drive, I'm okay, I feel safe. And she's, constantly complaining. I learned to drive in New York, so I kind of like, but, so I got wise, and then I said, finally, okay. So I started slowing things down, and then I would get into the exit lane, and like half a mile or a mile ahead of time, and I just kind of slink out of the highway. One day, I did exactly that. I remember exactly where it was. It was on Watt Avenue, out of my house. And so I got on the exit lane. I was patiently waiting to get onto the highway. And then she gets angry at me, and she goes, "Why are you going so slow? Why don't you get around this truck? Hurry up, we're late." That moment I lost it. I got angry. I said, what is it that you want me to do? You know how you feel when you feel you're damned if you do and damned if you don't? See, was that kind of a situation? Do you want me to exit early or do you want me to go fast? Because I can't do both. And so I got very angry at her. And then my daughter, who is 11 years old, she's always giving me a hard time. She's one person in this world that I can't get angry at. I'm going to just spoil the heck out of her. I don't care what happens to her. I'm just going to spoil her. But she taps on my shoulder and she goes, "Dad, if you really want to make your mom happy, you can't complain about making her happy." This is the 11-year-old told me. And I realized, oh my goodness, she's right. For that moment, when you're flushed with this conflicting information, your emotions get flushed, and then momentarily it can drive you crazy. It gets to all of us. But what we do have is the ability to reflect and take our time, and so that we can construct different thoughts that could possibly remedy the situation. So your ability to manage your thoughts is paramount. It doesn't come easily, but we all have to practice. Okay? And so today I'm going to share with you some ideas. And this is, I share this with all the groups that I go to, because it's so amazing statistics. The number one cause of death in America is heart disease. 700,000 people die. Number two cause of death is cancer, malignant cancer. And then the third leading cause of death, if you haven't heard my talk, nobody can guess what it is. Okay? Third leading cause of death is iatrogenic causes. Iatrogenic means you die because you went to see a doctor and you got some kind of a treatment. It's the complications from being in the hospital, being treated by the doctors. And this is a very conservative estimate. Some estimates come in at 400,000 people per year. This 250,000 people a year is like, it's similar to 4 jumbo planes flying out of the sky every single day in America. Can you imagine saying, hey, I got to get to New York, but you know what, there's a small chance that the plane's going to fall off. I mean, that's a chance you're going to have to take. So you just go anyways. No, we wouldn't tolerate that. But we're tolerating this every single day. My point is, for the vast majority of the illnesses and diseases that we have, there's some 40,000 diagnoses that we've identified. If they're chronic condition, we don't have a solution. If you have chronic pain, studies show that you're better off if you don't talk to a doctor. My friend developed this neck pain, radiating pain down the arm, and he's talking to all these different doctors. I said, you got to stop talking to the doctor, Joe. You're going to be in a world of trouble, because doctors are very good at implanting thoughts. Okay, fibromyalgia, it sounds sexy, but we don't know what the heck it is. It's just pain everywhere. Myofascial pain, herniated discs, double crush syndrome. My friend goes, you know, I was told I have a double crush syndrome. How would you like to live with a syndrome that has the word crush in there? You've got it. Okay? It's amazing. We put all kinds of thoughts, and the studies are repeatedly showing that we implant these thoughts and patients live with it for the rest of their lives. These are complications of counting the people that are just dead. Overdose, unnecessary surgery, hospital errors, hospital infection, medication side effects. This number does not include fatalities in nursing homes. We know there's a lot of fatalities in nursing homes, outpatient settings, and pharmacies. So this is a serious challenge that the medical field is addressing. But we have to spend more time trying to figure out, how do we live healthier before things start going wrong, okay? And one of the things that, as I study, one of the things that I'm figuring out is that when you get your mental state in the right place, your body just works a lot better. Okay, in every single situation, those 8 struggling moments, if you have the right mental state and right psychological abilities to handle those situations, your body handles it well. It doesn't process it as a stress, and I'm going to show that to you. It processes it as a healing state rather than stress that ravages your body. Okay? What do you guys see here? Huh? Face in the head. Face in the head. What do you see? Oh, she sees a duck. Anybody else see anything else? Rabbit. He sees rabbit. Okay. Do you guys see rabbit? Everybody sees rabbit? She doesn't see rabbit. Somebody help her, please. Do you see a duck? Everyone sees a duck? Huh? So I want to tell you that we live in an ambiguous world. Okay? We live in a world that has ambiguous picture. The world doesn't present to us in a perfect sense. Okay? We're living in a world that we're always going to be ambiguous as to whether it's this or that. But you know what? depending on whether you see this picture as a rabbit, or this is a rabbit in the ear, or a duck, okay? Your world is going to be different. Your world can be full of quacking ducks, irritating the heck out of you for the rest of your life, or it could be a very pleasant world where there's rabbits running around. All right? Now, if you show this picture to just regular people without any prior knowledge of this picture being ambiguous, 80% of the people will see ducks. Okay? But if you show this picture during the Easter week, maybe it won't work with the Seventh-day Adventists, but general population in America, if you show it during the Easter week, 80% of them see rabbits. The trick is that people don't know why it is that they see rabbits or why it is that they see ducks. In other words, whatever is in the context in our background determines the thoughts that you're going to have, and oftentimes we don't know what's influencing us. This is why we have to understand how the brain works, and this is why we have to learn how to suspend judgment until we have better and better knowledge. And education, now we know, is basically learning how much you don't know. Okay? And so you become more and more humble. You're never sure about anything anymore. That is the right way to see this world. All right? When you are 100% sure that you're right, you are in a world of trouble, is what I'm saying. Blessed are the poor in spirit. What does it mean to be poor? Well, there's different interpretations, but there's a good argument that it means to be humble. You always feel like it's lacking. Spiritually, you always feel like, I'm missing, I need more. I don't know for sure. It's that state of uncertainty, and that brings you into humility and ability to learn more things. Because once you're sure, there's nothing more to learn. And that's a huge problem, is what I'm saying. And we run into that all the time. So for me, when I know I'm sure that I'm right, my goodness, every time I get into an argument with my wife, I'm 100% sure that I'm right. That's why I'm arguing. There's no way to get out of that. I can say it 100 different times, and this really happened to me. You know, when I get into an argument with my wife, I realize that I have to talk really fast, because if I slow down, then some of her words start going into my ear. And then I get confused by my own thoughts. And all of a sudden I lose a train of my thought, and then it gets me confused, and I can't afford that. Otherwise, I'm going to lose the argument. That's why I talk like crazy. And then I talk louder, because if I start talking, then she starts speaking louder, and then some of the words again come into my ear, and then I get confused. I have to listen to her. That's the last thing I want to do when I'm in an argument. Okay? I can't afford to listen to her argument, because I'm that sure. I'm that 100% sure. As long as your arguments, your thoughts, you're 100% sure, 99% sure, you're in trouble. Okay? You'll never understand what's going on. And you'll be the only one wondering what the heck is going on. And it becomes either my way or highway, kind of an attitude. Let's try that for 2 years or 3 months. See how many people really respect you. It doesn't work. It's the weirdest thing. So humility simply means, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. But you know what? I'm willing to listen to you. I have my own thoughts. I have my opinions. Maybe I'm wrong. What does the Bible say about kids? It says, do not spare the rod, right? So we got to beat the heck out of our kids if they don't listen to us, right? According to the Bible. Is that a correct statement? Many people struggle with this, all right? Many people struggle with this. I know a lot of pastors I've talked to, they still believe that you should not beat, but you should hit them if they're not listening. But all the studies, psychological studies, if you look at the literature, they say you shouldn't hit your kids. So is the Bible wrong? And so many conservative, die-hard conservative Christians will say, well, I'm not going to listen to science because the Bible has all the truths, right? And so now you got to throw out the entire science. But it doesn't work. We can't live in this world without understanding and accepting the scientific studies because God gave us science. You know what's interesting is I was reading, and they said that for black people, African Americans, the kids grow up with hechori or with getting hit, and it's spanking, and it doesn't negatively affect them. Isn't that weird? But if you have Caucasian parents and they spank their kids and they get brain damaged. So when this study came out, they wouldn't publish it because this is racial, right? But what they found out, and they were able to repeat the study, and they said, we got to publish it because that's what the science shows. But what they were able to discover is that African American kids had different perceptions about being spanked than the white Caucasian kids growing up. So Caucasian kids know it's bad. Okay, if my parents spank me, I'm going to go to the police. Okay? Okay? But African American kids and Asian kids, we grew up getting beat up. We're like, man, if my dad doesn't spank me, something's not right. Huh? So it all had to do with the mental state of the kids who's being spanked. All right? And so the Bible, if you really look at that text, if you interpret it in the right context, all of a sudden it makes sense. All right? And so the thoughts that we have, even as a child, that's why when we raise our kids, we have to pay so much attention to how they're processing the relationship. They say when the kids fight you, okay, kids are defiant. They don't listen to you. And they look at you funny and they scream at you. And my kids do that all the time. They're only 11 and 12. It means that they're fighting with you because they don't want to lie to you. Does that make sense? They disagree with you and they don't want to lie, and so they fight you. So we should be thankful that they're fighting us. Right? When you understand it, every time my daughter looks at me really funny, I mean, she's got this really nasty tone. When she was growing up, the first words that I remember her saying was, no. No. And then when she wakes up, something's wrong with her. Definitely. Something's wrong with her. When she wakes up in the morning, she screams, get away. And then she kicks you. And she does all kinds of weird things. And I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, man, what is wrong with my child? But now I realize she's alive. She's got her own thoughts. She has her own feelings. She's just freely expressing them. Now I need to teach her how to express them correctly. I need to teach her some manners. I need to teach her how to behave in a certain way. But she's feeling something, and she's expressing it freely. And that's a blessing, all right? And so the thoughts that we have make a huge difference, because we know that we're not passive observers of the world. We actively interpret what we see, and we make sense out of them. And how we interpret the world make a whole world of difference, because this interpretation dictates how we feel. You know what the word emotion means? If you separate them out, you got E and motion. Motion means action. Emotion basically tells you how you're going to behave. Emotion precedes your actions, okay? And what determines how we feel is how we look at this world. There's three things that can really ruin your life. I've talked about two: one, catastrophic thinking, and fear avoidance for chronic pain. When it comes to depression, there's three different thoughts. When you have these three different thoughts, it will ruin your life. One is this thought that I am ugly. I used to be depressed. I used to struggle with depression when I was in high school, college, and a little bit in medical school. And I used to think that I was ugly. Can you believe that? I used to think I was ugly. It's hard to believe what I did. And I still think I'm a little bit short, but it used to bother the heck out of me. So I have a question for you. How would you prove, to anyone that I am ugly or good looking? How would I prove that? You can ask somebody, but I can ask the pastor, but I know what he's going to say. He says I'm good looking. Well, I don't believe him. He's just a nice guy. He's not going to say anything mean. Let me tell you, this is so important. Your perception of who you are is so important, but we're not talking about an objective reality. It turns out it's just an opinion. And that opinion makes a world of difference. It's going to determine whether you're going to see ducks in this world quacking away, or there are beautiful rabbits running around, and it's heavenly. And so when I was, one time, I was seeing a patient, and this patient who was there with her husband, this is what she said. She said, Dr. Shin, you're the best looking doctor I've ever seen in my life. And I was so happy. So I went home and I told my wife, you're not going to believe what happened. This patient tells me I'm the best looking doctor she's ever seen. And her husband's right there, so I know she's telling the truth. And she goes, how old was she? I said, 74. He goes, well, she's got cataracts. That's what my wife said. So how am I going to know if I'm really good looking? I can't even trust an experienced woman's word. 74 years old, she's seen many men before, and she said I'm the best looking doctor she's ever seen. I can't trust her. Maybe she's too old. Maybe she likes me, because the reasoning never ends. At some point, you just have to accept the fact that you are not only good looking, but that you're worthy of God's love. That's belief. You can't prove it. You can't prove that I'm worthy of love, that I'm lovable, that you're going to like me. I can't. I don't know. Just an opinion. And second belief is this idea that this world is a fun place to be. Depressed people believe that this world is no fun. How do you prove that? You can't. It's just an opinion. Third thought is that there's no hope. So if you think you're ugly, you think this world is no fun place to be, and if you're hopeless, that's the definition of depression. These are just thoughts. These thoughts that you can't scientifically demonstrate. How do you demonstrate that this world is a fun place to be? You can't. I always tell the story. My wife one time was laughing, and she was walking all the way across the hallway and came all the way over to tell me. I was reading a book at the time, and I looked up. I said, "What's so funny?" And she goes, "You won't believe this." And she says, I was watching Caleb, our son, who was like 6 years old at the time, was reading a book, and he was saying, "Wulpu, wulpu," and he was laughing. So what does that mean? Well, his grandfather had taught him how to say wolf in English, nukte, or wolf, but he doesn't speak English very well, so he said wulpu, wulpu. And then when he started going to school, he goes to school and it's not wulpu, wulpu, it's wolf. So he's sitting there looking at this picture of a wolf and saying, "Grandfather, wulpu, wulpu, that's really funny." And so my wife was watching that, and she thought it was hilarious. She couldn't stop laughing. You know, guys, when we usually laugh, we laugh and then we stop. When we start talking about it, we start laughing again. This one, she was laughing the whole time as she was walking through this long hallway, all the way out to me. I heard her. And so I listened to it, and I was like, yeah, that's funny. And then I went down like this. And immediately I knew that wasn't the right response. Immediately I knew I was in trouble. So I looked up, and she goes, man, you're no fun. You're no fun. That's what she said. You know what? The studies show that you can show same exact picture to someone that's normal, or somebody that's crazy like my wife, or somebody that's depressed. And for someone that's depressed, they get about half a second of positive emotional reaction. Normal person is 2 seconds, and somebody crazy like my wife, like 5 seconds. There are people that get 5 seconds out of it. The differential is 10 times. You see the same darn thing happening in this world. Somebody's having fun 10 times more than somebody that's depressed. The left frontal lobe processes positive emotions. Right frontal lobe processes negative information, negative emotional experience. So if you have a stroke on the right frontal lobe, you don't see any negative things coming in. So anything that happens, you laugh. It's called pathologic laughter. Okay, that's illness. All right, inappropriately laughing. If you have a stroke in the left frontal lobe, you have pathologic crying. Anything that happens, you start crying. So we have different brain parts that process negative versus positive emotional experience. Now, they've done studies with the left frontal lobe, looked at a variety of different people, and they call it the activation potential. Some people have very little activation on the left frontal lobe, okay? Other people have high activation. The difference between the low versus high was 30 times. I'm telling you, we can exercise this muscle, left frontal lobe. You know what strengthens this left frontal lobe? Prayer. That's what studies show. They call it meditation, but when you look at prayer versus meditation, it's one and the same thing. If I had time, I can explain it. Prayer strengthens. Exercise strengthens. Spending human interactions strengthens the left frontal lobe. Of course, laughter. All right? So you can imagine that when you have chronically deprived of your left frontal lobe the rightful amount of exercise throughout each day, it just gets smaller and smaller and weaker and weaker. And it gets harder for you to see that this world is a great place to live. Hey, this world is so full of mystery and excitement. I can't wait to see it, feel it, and do things. And exactly same thing can present to you. We process it differently. So the thoughts that you have matter. Every single thought you have, you should own it. You should question it. You should work on it. You should shape it. You should educate it. And always be open-minded. I can't treat patients when they're stuck on this one thought. I have pain in my back. I have pain in my shoulder. So something's wrong with my shoulder. It's a logical thought, but we know current science says it's absolutely not correct. How are you going to accept that? Well, you have to be humble. You have to say, well, let me listen to the evidence. Are you really serious? But you have to have the ability to doubt your own thoughts, right? To be able to open yourself up, right? So let me tell you, God designed our brain, okay, so that we have fun, all right, doubting your own thoughts, okay? God designed that way. I'm going to demonstrate it to you. This is a study done by Weissman in 2004. And the internet had just come around, and he put a study out in the internet. 40 different countries participated, 40 million people responded. The question was, what do you think is the funniest joke in the world? If you go into the internet, type in funniest joke in the world, this is what will come up. This got voted number 1. All right? Let's see if this is funny. It says 2 hunters are out in the woods when one of them collapses. He doesn't seem to be breathing, his eyes are glazed. The other guy whips out his phone and calls 911. He gasps, "My friend is dead, what can I do?" The operator says, "Calm down, I can help. First, let's make sure he's dead." Then there's a silence and a gunshot is heard. Back on the phone, the guy says, "No, okay, now what?" Yeah. So, somebody tell me why this is funny. I've told this, I've used this slide almost every talk that I go to, and I have yet to have anybody give me an explanation as to why something like this is funny, okay? We don't know. Well, we figured it out. The neuroscientists have figured out why we laugh at it. But usually when you're faced with the question, why do you think this is funny? They usually say, because it's so stupid. It's so absurd. Then my next question to you is, why is absurdity funny? Absurd is just absurd. Not all absurd things are funny, right? There are many absurd things that we don't laugh at, they're just absurd. But there is an element about this absurdity that triggers a spot in your brain. I'm going to explain it to you. This is a program that God put inside your head so we stay humble, open-minded, so it can shape and allow, in my understanding, allow God's Spirit to enter. All right? Look at this. There's an assumption behind this story. The assumption is that you got to save lives, right? We all share that. When you call 911, you're not calling for any other reason than to save life. So every story, every thought has some assumptions that's not overtly stated, but we all agree that it's an assumption. It's a valid assumption. But there's 2 interpretations, 2 ways to go for this statement. Let's make sure he's dead. The first interpretation, no, he's not dead. Go check it out. The second interpretation, which your brain automatically rejects because it's not consistent with the normal assumption that you have. The second assumption is to make sure he's dead, meaning go kill him. Okay? Which is absurd, right? We laugh when the absurd interpretation turns out to be the correct one in the story, completely shattering your assumption. So, every time you hear a joke, okay, if you think about it, there's always 2 different interpretations. One you automatically assume to be true, but the joke of the story is that the second interpretation, which is the absurd interpretation, happens to be true. Why are the 6s afraid of 7s? Because 7, 8, 9. 8 has 2 different meanings. So if you use the second interpretation, which normally wouldn't in that context, and shattering the assumption that you usually live by, then it's funny. What do you call cheese that's not yours? Nacho cheese. These are stupid jokes that kids tell. Not your cheese. It means nacho cheese versus not your cheese. It has 2 different meanings, right? So whenever there's a hidden meaning that's not part of your world, okay, turns out to be true, God makes sure that you laugh instead of getting offended. Which means that for us to learn new concepts without shattering your assumptions about this world, it's not going to happen. And as we get older and older, your assumptions get stronger and stronger. All of a sudden, you can't have any new ideas. Okay? God designed our brains so we laugh at these stupid things, just so that our brain stays flexible. Without flexibility, we can't learn new tricks. Okay? So you gotta have, you know what's the best tasting bread? It's my wife's croissant. She has a bakery, all right? The worst thing I said to her when she started the bakery was this. I said, croissant is a croissant. That's all I said. I said, what's the big deal? Croissant is a croissant, whether you get it from Costco for 75 cents a batch, you get it from Safeway for 90 cents, and you're selling it for $3. I can't tell the difference. She was so offended. But croissants, let me tell you, the good croissants, all right, doesn't have much bread in it. It's all air. It's hilarious. Look at this. This is a good croissant. There's no bread. If you take a croissant and you crumble it up, you get like, it turns about this much bread. I like this analogy because we need to have more holes in our thoughts so that other people's ideas can come in. When we make arguments with our kids, we have to make sure that our arguments are weak and subtle. Because if it's too strong, they're going to reject you. Because they don't have the chance to have their own thoughts and we just don't like it. Okay? I'm not just telling you this. The studies are showing that. When we make too strong of an argument, your chances of it being rejected is so high, it's not even worth talking. That's why when we argue, we have to stop talking and listen. And we have to come across weak. The argument that I make should sound somewhat stupid because they're already stupid when you're in an argument. Okay? So we need to have holes. And then, you know what I like? God says what? In my place, there are many rooms. I know it means a physical space up in heaven, but I also like to think that when we go to God, He has a lot of room in His heart for me, for my thoughts, for my reasoning, for my experience. He has that big of a heart, like, you know, a croissant that can accommodate a lot of air and empty space. He's got a lot of room in His heart to listen to me, to my concerns, my thoughts, and my challenges, and the things that I'm struggling with. Okay, and that's what it means to be a good listener. You have the ability to soak it up. Because, you know, what's the last thing you want to do to a friend when they're struggling? Give them advice. Okay? That's something you just never do. You teach them how to overcome their problem. That's an amateur talk. We don't do that because they're the only ones that really understands the complexity of the problem. For you to give them advice after listening 5 minutes doesn't work. Here's a riddle. What has an eye but cannot see? A needle, right? Here's another needle. A man reading a book, lights go off, pitch dark, but the man goes on reading. How? Anybody? Blind, yes, Braille, right? Okay, how about this one? 2 mothers and 2 daughters were fishing. Each caught one and ended up with 3 fishes. How? 2 mothers and 2 daughters. These are riddles, okay? Here's the thing about riddles. I told you about jokes. Here's the thing about riddles. You've got a mother, daughter, and then daughter-in-law, and then another daughter. So there's only really 3 people. Even though, so the one of the person is both mother and a daughter. Does that make sense? That's a riddle, right? So riddles are interesting to us, okay, because the number it does in our head. And this is another program that got put into our head so that we stay flexible. Here's the problem with riddles. You're limited, okay, by not what you don't know, but you can't get to the answer because of what you already know. So I've got one thing to tell you. Be careful when you feel like you know what's going on. You will never solve the riddles of life. When you feel that you know, all right, you got to be careful. And God says, when you solve that riddle, you have to, okay, there's no solution within the existing framework. Solution only with a new point of view. All right, so you're limited by what you know. I try to tell myself this all the time because I hear all kinds of idiotic arguments from my patients, and sometimes my wife. They all sound so darn stupid, right? But what does that mean when I feel like that? It means that I'm limited by what I know, and I don't have the humility. It means that, hey, I know what I'm talking about. But you, man, that's like really weird. That's not how you build relationships. So we have to learn how to dismantle what we know. And this is the weirdest thing about it. Let me tell you, when it comes to stress, okay, the things that we're discovering about stress is that the thoughts that you have about stress make a huge difference. So for example, if you think that stress harms your health, it does. But if you have this other perception that stress is helpful, is a process whereby my body is getting ready to handle a challenge, then our body handles it well. Okay, they did a study. This study, basically in Harvard, where they had the kids go through a very stressful situation. And one group, they told them, hey, you know, stress is helpful. It's just getting your body ready. It's pumping up your blood, and you know, it clears your head so you can be more focused, laser focused, so you can handle a challenge at hand. The other group, they just told them just some general knowledge about stress. And they had them go through stressful events, which is like giving a talk in front of evaluators. And you know, students get always stressed out. And now we have the technology to measure the heart vessel activity. When they were told that stress is helpful, they found out that these heart vessels vasodilated in the heart. So we're getting more blood to the heart. On the other hand, when they feel like they're being stressed out, heart vessels constricted. This is a difference of life and death. Imagine living your entire life thinking, man, I can't handle the stress. Just leave me alone. I gotta retire. I gotta get myself another job. Man, whatever this marital relationship, this is too hard. I'm gonna stay away from, far away from it as possible. Oh, this stress is getting to me. You are killing yourself. But if you change your thought and say, hey, this is a challenge, then your heart vessels open up. Just your thoughts make that kind of a difference. I really want to tell you that when you learn to manage your thoughts better, your world can change. And to me, this is what gospel is. Because when Jesus comes to our life, he just wants to change one thing. He just wants you to believe in this life and the saving graces of Jesus. It's just a thought. I'm going to take 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, explaining that, okay? And skip through all this. Okay, this one. When I was in college, I was a bad kid. No, I really wasn't. I was a pretty good kid. But I did some bad things. This was one of the things that I did bad that I regret. I shoplifted one time, okay? So this was the racket that I stole. And I figured out how to shoplift without getting caught. Do you guys want to know how to do it? I'm going to tell you, okay? So this is what you do. You grab a racket, you pay for it, okay? Because I had money to pay for it. And you get the receipt, you take the racket, put it in your trunk, take the receipt, go back to the store. My goodness, everyone's listening very carefully, including Dr. Lee over here. You take the receipt. Oh, she wants to take notes.
I know the customer.
She owns a store. You take another racket and you return it with the receipt. Isn't that? Huh? Yeah, but now they have, codes and, I mean, I'm sure it's more difficult. This was 30 years ago. But anyways, I stole it. So, I have a question for you. Am I a thief? Am I a thief? Okay, that's a thought. Okay? Everyone says, yeah, you stole. Damn, you're right. You're a thief. All right? So here's a question. Am I a thief? 도둑놈? Or am I someone that stole a racket? She says, no, you're a thief. What?
Because you didn't pay for the other one. Right.
I didn't, so yes, I did steal, yes, I did steal. So I insist that I'm someone that just stole a racket. I'm not a thief. What's the difference? I know, I did steal, yes. I was, okay, I'm only to give that. I was thief for that one moment. But my question is, am I a thief right now? So let me tell you, depending on, if I kill somebody, am I a murderer? Or am I someone that just killed somebody? And what's the difference? There is a huge difference, okay? Your cognitive mind may not get it, but once I explain this, all the psychologists know through a variety of different, these are called self-conscious emotions, okay? Self-conscious emotion is the emotional experience you have about yourself. All right, what are some of those? Pride is an emotional experience I have about myself. Guilt is another one. Shame is another one, right? Embarrassment, these are emotional experiences that I have about myself, okay? But depending on whether you call yourself a thief after having one shoplifting experience, I didn't like it, so I didn't do that again. All right, a lot of my friends did shoplifting when I was in college. I don't know why we did that. But, one friend, after 30 years, he called up my other friend apologizing for, they almost got caught. And so he ran away first. And so he left his friend behind. He felt so guilty about it for 30 years. He called him and said, dude, I'm sorry I did that. All right? I mean, we do a lot of weird things when we're kids. There is a reason for that. All right? But we don't have time to explain that. But whatever the reason it may be, let's say you consider yourself a thief. The difference is very clear psychologically, and our brain knows. Okay, there are things that our brain assesses that my mind doesn't. When I say brain, I'm talking about the limbic system, the emotional world, and the brainstem. Brainstem is the engine of your brain. You know, the dopamine is released by brainstem. Or it decides on its own, okay? And the interesting thing about your brainstem and the limbic system, it does not have past, present, or future. It's always the present moment. Our mind creates this sense of past, present, and future. All right, so we have two different systems working in our brain. Our brain makes a huge distinction between these two, although our mind gets confused. Here's the difference. One, thief, the problem is me. But when I say I stole a racket, the problem is my behavior. It turns out my dad he was a pastor. He retired as a pastor. I was talking about this, and he told me that he stole something when he was a kid too. I was so happy. My dad stole something when he was a kid. It was in the Korean War, 1950, whatever, and they were in Jeju-do. They had all moved down to Jeju. He said during the Korean War, he had a blast. Because they took the Adventist people into American ship, and they shipped them all the way down to the Jeju-do, the island, where they didn't see any war action. So they had like 2,000 Adventists living all together. Nobody was working because the U.S. government provided the food. It was like 2 years. My grandfather was a pastor of that group. Okay, so my dad grew up, spent 2 years, nobody went to school, and they just all had fun during Korean War. thanks to American troops in the United States, right? So at that time, he didn't have any money. He wanted to go fishing. So he had two friends, and he went to the store, and while the two friends were distracting the owner, he stole the hook. He told me that. He was laughing about it. I said, Dad, you're a thief. Is he a thief or someone that just stole? Right? But if you say you're a thief, okay, you're attacking yourself, and changing yourself, your identity, is almost impossible. But let me tell you, changing your behavior is not that hard. We can work on it. We can improve our behavior, as I have. Trust me, you don't want to know all the bad behaviors I've had, okay? I've improved. I know my wife doesn't believe it. I've improved. I've been working on it, right? Okay, so here's an attack on yourself. This is behavior, and we have two distinctly different emotions, okay? You guys, it's hard to tell, but studies have shown that these are fairly distinct emotional experiences that we have about ourselves when we do something wrong. One is shame, which is an emotion about me. One is guilt, which is in my emotions about my behavior. So this is very biblical, because the Bible says, as the law came to this world, our sin increased. In Romans, there's a very complicated text. I don't know if I have that on here. Oh, no, I took it out because it's too theological. But what Apostle Paul was probably saying was that we want our sense of guilt to increase. So people that consistently feel guilty about their behavior, they improve. But people that consistently feel ashamed about themselves, we see that among alcoholics. There are alcoholics that feel ashamed for being an alcoholic. There are alcoholics that feel guilty about having such a destructive lifestyle. When you treat them, people that consistently feel ashamed don't change. People that feel guilty about what they do, they improve. All right? So this is my pet peeve. Every time that you guys do something wrong, sit down and tell yourself, am I attacking myself or am I attacking my behavior? Whenever somebody does something wrong to you, listen to your words. Because when I get really angry, you know what I used to say to my wife? I say, you're a bitch. Do you guys ever cuss at each other? I use that word. I say, you're a bitch. What does that mean? It means that you're no good. You're impossible. I'm attacking the self. I'm trying to cause shame. And you say, you should be ashamed of yourself. How many times have you said that? You should be ashamed of yourself. To your kids. How many times have you said that when they do something wrong? No. Focus on their behavior and actions. If you focus on that, there's a chance. Let me tell you, this is where the Christian religion to me is amazing. When Jesus comes, he says, I don't really give a rat's ass about what you've done. Isn't that right? I don't care how sinful or how messed up you are. What I'm going to do is I'm going to forgive you and give you a radical forgiveness. And you come to me as you are. He says, I accept you. And I'm going to put a robe of righteousness so you look like you're a clean being. He's changing you at the core. He's saying, you're son of God, daughter of God. And there's nothing you can do to change my opinion about your being. But I want to work on your behavior. Let's work on the sanctification. I use the same technique with my kids. And it takes patience, but it makes sense. When they screw up, I see it as an opportunity. I say, look, there's nothing you can do to violate the fact that you are my son. There's nothing you can do where you will be excused from my love. I'm going to love you no matter what you do. But guess what? We got some work to do. Huh? We've got some work to do. That's how God is approaching me. This is a tradition that I grew up with. And when I study the human brain, and I realized that, man, there's so much power behind this. We can transform people's lives by using this approach. Let's accept other people, okay, with radical acceptance. There's no shame, right? There's no condemnation in Jesus Christ. Romans chapter 8:10, right? Or is it 10:8? There's no condemnation in Christ. What does that mean? Christ says, I don't care how screwed up you are. I'm not going to condemn you. I accept you. But now let's work on sanctification. Let's start working on your behavior. To me, it's just the shift of your thought. From shifting, it's the same thing, okay? We're all screwed up. But we're going to focus on accepting you as a person, but let's talk about how to improve your behavior. Thoughts matter. Every time you guys have thoughts, have fun with it. Write it down. Think about it. See how it affects you and other people. And when we do that, I think you're going to see a wonderful treasure trove of God's wonderful love in action. Well, thank you, everyone. That's like almost an hour, or just over an hour. All right? So if you guys have any questions, I'm willing to take it, but I'm done talking, and thank you again for inviting me. Every time I do something like this, I enjoy it because I get to meet people, and you know, whenever people listen to me, I feel good. I don't know why, but I'm very thankful to God and the opportunity that's been given to me, okay? Thank you very much. Should we close with a prayer?
질문 없었어요? So, any questions? Only the brave man can ask questions. Yes?
I'm a physical medicine rehab doctor, but I do mostly pain management. So we call it pain management because we don't know how to cure it. We just manage the pain. Yeah.
또 뭐 혹시 질문하실 사항 없으십니까? 예. 닥터신 위해서 기도하겠습니다. 우리 끝나기 전에. 예. 우리 함께 기도하시겠습니다. Let's pray together. 하나님 감사합니다. 오늘 이렇게 주말에 우리 닥터신 함께 좋은 시간을 마련해 주시고 또 주의 말씀과 그가 여태까지 연구한 모든 것들을 나누어 줄 수 있는 그런 시간을 허락하시니 감사합니다. 주께서 그의 앞날에 복을 내려주시고 또 모든 사업에 함께 하시며 또 이렇게 틈나는 대로 주를 위해서 일할 때 주께서 이 일을 기쁘게 받아주시고 또 앞으로의 모든 사업에 주님의 계획이 함께 하셔서 주께서 일일이 간섭하시고 인도하심으로 기쁨으로 이 말씀들을 전할 수 있도록 주여 도와주시옵소서. Especially blessed on his ministry and when he's on the way back home and asking travel mercy, and when we meet again sooner or later, help us to be your true witness, and Lord, help us to cherish what he has been sharing with us, and next time when we see him again, help us to meet him with our heavenly blessing and grace. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. 예, 감사합니다. 우리 박수 한번 하시겠습니다.